Round 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup at Altenberg in Saxony on a blustery, snowy afternoon. After the first heat of the men's competition in dry conditions, the rain and the snow appear to be back as we get ready for our second and deciding heat. Hey everybody, I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me is Canadian slider Elizabeth Meyer. And Elizabeth, got a great race after our first run.
Definitely, it's going to be a big fight for second place. Nikita Tregbibov is only 600ths out of second. He laid down a really nice run. Definitely going to be looking for those few hundredths to move up in position. He won the first race out this season, which was his first World Cup win ever. Recently sponsored by Red Bull as well. Yoon Sung-bin is sitting second. He is Olympic champion, had a bit of a slip on the start. He won this race last year, so he's going to be looking forward to move up a little bit, have a nice, clean start without that slip in the exit. And first is Alexander Tretiakov, #1 start, #1 finish, World Cup leader, tied with Nikita Tregbibov, won the race in Winterberg, Germany, and laid down a really nice run here, letting it go and having the fastest of the heat. And he can be very pleased with that on a clean track.
Yeah, so we have Olympic champion versus Olympic champion at the top of the pile. Nikita Tregbibov, as you said, like Tretyakov, a winner already this season. Then Martin Stuckhaus, Christopher Grotehair, not out of medal contention yet. Axel Jung probably is. What about Austin Florian of the USA? Second ever World Cup. He was first man out of the shed. He put down a top 6 run, ended up getting squeezed down to 7th, but still a remarkable first run. New dad Dave Chris Cheshin of Canada, just outside of the top 10 after the first of our heats. Jerry Rice stays in the field, but teammate Jack Thomas with Alex Hansen, Ivo Steinbergs, Kevin Boy and Mihai Pakianu are all out of the contention. Just the fastest 20 of our 25 go through. Well, there's Nikita. You can see the runners there. They're not flat like an ice skate. They're bowed like the bottom of a rocking chair. What he's doing there is measuring how much they're bowed by, correct?
Yeah, definitely. The amount of contact that the runner actually has on the ice. So the bigger athlete you are, the more bow that you're going to have in the runner, and the more that you have on the ice, the more control you have. So you're kind of in that balance between having control and letting it go.
Axel Jung there on the right with 120 fans here. Christopher Grotehair in the background. Last man off the top of the hill, but a smoking run from Grotehair in his first World Cup race of the season. Everybody making adjustments or just checking that the sled is set up the way they want. You can't change the runners, but you can change the setup. A little bit like a racing car, you've got to use the same tyres, but you can change the suspension if you like a little bit. So that gives a different feel to the sled if you had not enough control in the first heat or too much. So here's our start list going into Heat 2. We go 20 down to 1, last to fast. Jerry Rice will be first off from Manuel Schweitzer and Wenchen Gang. And then the last to go will be the man defending the lead and looking for win #2 of the season, Alexander Tretyakov, the 2014 Olympic champion. Tretyakov has not won on this track, but he has had a slew of medals in the last few years. Martin Stuckhaus has done most of the winning since the World Championships back here in 2008. We get ready on a snowy track for our first of 20 sliders. Heat 3 of the World Cup for men's skeleton. And first out of the traps will be Great Britain's Jerry Rice. You can see what started in the break between the runs as a bit of misty drizzle has now become a little bit of gritty, icy snow. And the track workers sweeping. They'll probably sweep the straights about every third sled.
They're going to be fighting a bit of a losing battle here with the snow blowing in.
Always are, I'm afraid, in a winter sport. But these guys have so much pride in the track. Like the ice meister here, Ralph, who's been keeping the ice here in perfect condition for 2 decades and more. Coach Eric Benotas checking his watch. He raced here back in 2004 when our race leader Alexander Tretyakov made his World Cup debut in Altenberg. So getting ready. 4 runners have gone down the track to check conditions, and they have given the A-OK. So the 30-second timer starts. And Jerry Rice with a 5:11 start in the first heat, 28-year-old.
You can see the snow blowing in a little bit as he's running and coming off his shoes. in this kind of conditions, you're wanting to get your sled down as quick as you possibly can and get down the track as fast as possible.
Yeah, get gone as soon as you can after the sweepers get out of the track, because that allows as little snow to build up as possible. Clatters the wall 4 into 5.
Yeah, a bit of tap into 4 and exit of 4. Big snow drifts here, and unfortunately he's a bit of a snowplow right now.
Yeah. Well, he's a big, strong athlete. You can see how rugby and American football are in his background. 106.6 kilometres now, that's 66.2 miles an hour into the Kreisel, and a big flop on the exit.
Into those snow drifts, that's so difficult. You can actually feel your sled slow down when you hit a snow drift like that.
And there again, he's right over on the right-hand side as they go over the crest. That slows you down, going uphill through the snow. At the line, what does he do? It's a 59.63. The first heat was a 59.44. Now, I'm not sure whether that was partially snow or partially more mistakes creeping in. Combination of the two, as likely as not.
He struggled a bit on the exit of Kreisel there, but he did as well in the first run. So the snow actually did not slow him down so much. He's having nice pressures here a little bit early on that first toe. And then as he hits the exit, he power skids his sled just so he doesn't get popped up. But I actually think that makes it a little bit worse for him. Really flying on the exit of Kreisel there. And a tap as well as a bit of insult to injury.
And all that snow in the straight. 11th World Cup race weekend for Jerry Rice. Next up, Manuel Sferza of Italy. And Manuel, just 22 years old, former luger, raced here at all 3 levels of his career. European Cup, Intercontinental Cup, and now World Cup.
And he's kind of this next generation of Italian sliders, following Joe Cicchini.
This is only his 8th World Cup race, 5.40 at the start. That's a fraction slower than his first, but the wind is definitely picking up from earlier, and it just howls around the start building here.
And like Jerry, he had a bit of a tap there into corner 4, so perhaps with the snow drifts, it's kind of putting athletes a little bit offline.
But it takes away your momentum and your rhythm a little when it slows you down. You're getting to corners a little slower than you think you are going to.
And it ends up being a race of avoiding the snow drift. So sometimes you don't take the best line just so you miss that little puff of snow.
Was 200s up at the start, dropped to 1500s back now. He's got a good run going. 1300s up, huge skid down the straight through the snow though. That'll put the brakes on. And hits the wall a little harder than we saw from Jerry Rice. 3/10 up though. Carries a lot of mass, Manuel Sferza. He's a big lad, and across the line, half a second up. 59.45. Well, that was 35 hundredths slower than his first heat, and that, again, you know, with his level of experience, which is relatively slim, that half of that is inconsistency, half of that is snow consistency.
Snow races are good for experience. They're not the funnest to race in. Here he comes, 11-12, just a little bit of a bump kind of that we've seen, and right into that snow drift sideways, and that's not fun, that's not quick. Coming out of 14 here, again, sideways into that snow drift. And snow kind of plays with you a little bit too. It'll push you into walls, it'll kind of take you offline, and so you're just learning to deal with that.
Yeah. Same as when you're driving a car on the highway, you hit a puddle with one wheel, you feel it steer into the puddle as that wheel gets slowed down, and that happens here with the sleds as well. Manuel Sferza leads from Jerry Rice. And our third slider on the ice will be our only Chinese competitor of the weekend, 23-year-old Wen Changgung. Comes from Inner Mongolia, coached by Willi Schneider, who has had so many decades of experience in skeleton as a slider and as a sled builder and as a coach.
You can see the snow coming up as the runner is in the groove. It just shows how much it's snowing at the top of the track.
23rd here last year, 18th after the first heat, so that's decent progression. There's Ralph, the Ice Meister, right at the side of the track.
It sounds slower on the start, but that is from the fact that it is snowing so much.
Yeah. It's a very different racetrack from how it was in the first heat, but then the weather's been very different every day this week, Liz.
Yeah, we have been dealing with everything, snow, rain, quick track, slow track.
Nice clean run down the straight into the Kreisel, decent control of the pressure, and a good exit.
A little bit of a skid in there, but it's not.
Keeps loses his quarter-second advantage over Manuel Schwerzer. He's a little quicker than the Italian as well. Down at the bottom here, he's got more speed in hand, so he'll open up the advantage. Could be 4500s by the line, 36, so 59.10. His first heat, 59.01. Now that, you would say, is great consistency, if only the track wasn't so utterly different.
Definitely, that's great consistency, considering the track will have slowed down for this run with the snow drifts all over the place.
So empirically, he learned from the first heat and corrected a few of those areas to have a better heat too, but the snow stopped it really showing so much.
Yeah, here we are in 11-12 into that big puff of snow. Just staying off the snow there as he heads into 13. This is 14 where he's gonna skid and get stuck in the drift and take a hit.
Yeah, you see the drift drags him into the wall there. Nothing anybody can do about that. That is the line as you come off 14. Corner sends you over to the right. So Gung of China is our race leader. 3 down, 17 to go in Altenberg. Hurry-up offense for Vladislav Marchenkov of Russia, the 22-year-old. Marchenkov in only his 10th World Cup start. At this end of the field, there's a lot of inexperienced junior sliders.
A 10th slower in the start, similar to Guang of China. Nice and relaxed on the sled, all 4 points of contact being his shoulders and his knees. Steering a bit over the top in that first pressure, so it skids the sled just a bit.
Slides a lot with his ankles apart, trying to balance the sled. The wider your legs are, the less the sled skids around underneath you. And that means more runner on the ice and less speed, more friction. Oh, and again, wild in the labyrinth as he was in the Chrysler as he was in the first heat.
Yeah. As well, just getting a little bit of a knock there.
Was up to 2100s ahead of Gung, and now a 10th back. 109.5, Gung had 110.4.
Really big height here as well.
And Marchenkov clatters the wall, 1800s back, 59.37. So he slips a spot. He will finish no worse than 18th. And Marchenkov has never raced here before at any level. So might have had a training week, but he's never posted any race result.
It's such a tricky day. Like, you go from the really quick track to this. Here, he just doesn't change the sled angle. He kind of hits that inverted part, which sends you at the end. You can steer so hard, but you're still going to get that flop. And here, you're going to see his foot kick out just as he gets onto that curve. Just sends him a little bit again into that wall and snow drift.
Again, that's not the athlete doing that. That's G-force is just flicking your leg across. It's such a violent transition. You get that scorpion kick. Greg West of the USA, 16th in the World Cup ranking, 16th in our race here. Fingertip start.
Yeah, he's got that very unique start, which gives him a little bit of extra room for him to be able to move his legs.
Also, he argues, puts much less pressure into the sled, less chance of you stumbling a little and popping it out of the groove. Everybody else goes, yeah, but you're hardly touching it. That's just weird. All right, he's in the green, 2200s up on Gung of China.
And is avoiding the snow drifts as best as possible.
He had 1600s in hand from the first heat. Now down to 1800s, 107.4. Just a fraction behind the Chinese slider in terms of pace.
It's tricky in these snowy days because sometimes you need to take a little bit worse line just so you don't get stuck in a snow drift.
300ths of a second is the margin. 108.3 to 110.5 of Gung, so he's going to slip a spot as well. The Chinese slider moves up. 59.41 for Greg West. He'll be no worse than 17th, but always disappointing to lose a spot when you end your run. You want to see the coach holding up one finger, which means you're in the lead.
Definitely not stoked, but it's so difficult when you're in a snow race. There's so much out of your control. See him dragging that right toe to try to change the sled angle to have a nice exit out of Kreisel. Just a bit of a flop, which really isn't too bad, but it puts him into a bit of a skid, probably due to the snow there.
And you saw there in the snow in that still how wide the runner marks were. Not a runner wide, they were a fist wide, which means you're skidding sideways. And like with skis and ice skates, that just slows you down. Wang Chungang of China leads Greg West and Vladislav Marchenkov. 5 down, 15 to go in Altenberg. At the line, 15th after the first of 2 heats, Altenberg, Germany. Vladislav Heriskavich of the Ukraine. Our current leader is Wang Chungang of China. And he's moved up from being 18th after the first heat. So he's picked off 2 already. And in these weather conditions, Elizabeth Meyer, anything could happen. Now, see, Vlad has his, just buckled up his helmet, but the strap is very loose indeed.
Yeah, it's all personal preference there on what you like. You see a little bit of snow being kicked up from your runner in the groove there.
Yeah.
Now, generally speaking, the bigger guys do a little bit better in the snow race because they're able to push the snow away because they have that weight.
Yeah. And particularly early on, where you haven't got much speed to give you mass, body mass really helps. So through all these little snow flurries, it's helping him power on, same way a big truck does compared to a lighter car. Not to say he's a big truck. Sorry. Decent exit there out of Chudai. You can see the wake of snow as he comes down the straight into the Kreisel.
And he is having a nice run here, so the snow is affecting these athletes.
Maybe him a little less than some of the others. Drifts all the way down the straight in the snow there. 800s remaining of his lead, 500s remaining of his lead. This is going to be very close. 110.4, just a fraction slower than the Chinese slider. Tie at the line. 400s in front, 59.42. 100 slower than the last man down, Greg West. And 3,200 slower than Gung of China. So he just clung on there. Mass or no mass, and we talked about this in the first heat, he's a lot bigger than a sled.
Definitely. Here he is getting onto his sled. You can see his feet kind of turning in, getting ready to load onto that sled as quiet as possible. You see the sled jiggling a little bit left and right, and the snow coming up behind him. When he's on his sled, he is definitely bigger than the bumpers. You do not want to be hitting walls because that is your arm hitting it.
He's proper Optimus Prime there, isn't he? His shoulder, never mind his elbow sticking out, his shoulders stick way out past the edge of the sled. Carl Brown of the USA, our second US slider of 3 in the field, 14th place after the first heat. Kyle in just his 9th World Cup start. A lot of youth and experience in this US team. Matt Antoine retired during the US trials. John Daly was done after the Olympic Games. So 2 new names coming in, Kyle Brown, and we've yet to see Austin Florian. Oh, little rattle from 4 to 5.
He was much quicker on this start than in the first one, a 10th faster. So that's showing that the snow is not affecting him there.
Just about avoids the wall.
Just a hair away from the wall there, setting him up very nicely for Kreisel.
Lots of chin on the ice in the Kreisel with the big pressures there. Huge steer to get the line.
Just a little bit out of control here on the bottom.
Was 6 tenths up, only 3 tenths remain, and you can hear a lot of noise. Elizabeth, as he comes across the line, 400s in front.
Narrowly stays in front, but again, all this is prep for next year, the World Championships. You never know what we're going to get for a race because it is an outdoor sport. One day it's sunny, next day it's snowing.
Well, this is 2 halves of different tracks, isn't it? Up to the Kreisel, he was 6 tenths up. Below that, he gave it all away.
Here he is coming out of 4. You see those legs really trying to stay off the wall.
But he's lucky to hang on to the sled, or did well to hang on to the sled.
Definitely into 12, it bumps him. He gets a little bit airborne almost, and pushes him into that right wall and into the snowdrift as well. And sideways into 13 as he clears the snow for the next one.
Yeah, threw his legs out to try and keep the sled straight underneath him. Race leader is Karl Brown of the USA. This is Ronald Arderset of Switzerland. Real hurry-up offense here, trying to go immediately. You get the green light to allow minimal slow build-up. 5:09, that's another cracking start. 5:08 in the first heat. That'll be among the top 6 fastest starters.
Gets stuck a little bit in that snowdrift on the right. A bit of a tap as he enters corner 4.
Oh, big skid through corner 4. Well, there goes his speed. You can almost see the sled much less nervous under him because the speed has gone away.
And he's unfortunately getting stuck in a whole bunch of snowdrifts as well. You can see the snow puff out behind him.
Wow, he's gone from 1800s up to 6/10 behind. That was a huge loss of time. He's going to be a second back on Karl Brown at the line. No speed on board.
It's a bit tricky because he had not the greatest exit out of corner 4 and then has been stuck in a ton of snowdrifts.
Yeah, and that's because he hasn't got the momentum to get him high up on the corners and give him the exits he wants. Look at that, lost a whole second there. 60.65 compared to 58.54. That's 2 seconds slower than his first run, and it's all because of corner 4.
Definitely. And like I've said earlier, in corner 4, it's tricky. You steer too much, you're slow. You steer too little, you're on your side. And it's trying to find that balance, which he was able to achieve in the first run. However, he gets a bit of a tap into corner 4, which already sets you offline, and he's just climbing. And then at the end, he steers so hard that he skids and tries to save it, but he still gets a bit of a bump there as well. Here he is coming out of 14, gets a bit of a bump on the left-hand side, sends him to the right into a snowdrift.
Tough run for Ronald Arderset. Race leader Karl Brown of the USA. Next up, new father Dave Kreszczeshin of Canada. And as he will undoubtedly later, we say hi to his wife Jess and his brand new baby daughter Aurelia, who was born during the Christmas New Year break. So whatever jet lag he felt shooting back to Canada and back home again, or back to Europe again, I'm sure he was suitably thrilled with his trip home. Let's see if he can be thrilled with this. He was just a few hundreds outside of a top 10 run in the first heat, and the snow might help him because Grizz, like the grizzly bear on his helmet, is a big unit.
And that was a 500s faster start. On his first start, he was a little bit off balance, but he was able to keep it nice and straight.
Think quiet thoughts now, watching at home. Nice run out of 4, little flop into 5, but he's got speed on board. 500's his advantage over Karl Brown.
And like you said, he's a bit bigger, so as he goes through the snowdrifts, it's not going to affect him as much as the smaller guys.
And again, he gets a good run out of 9, down to the Kreisel, 108.6. That is as fast as almost anyone.
And his toes are nice together. He's good and composed on the side. A little bit of a leg kick there, but it puts him nicely into 13.
He's gone from 500s to nearly 4 tenths in front, 6 tenths in front. This is a blazing run. This is Kreszczeshin trying to move up into the top 10. 112.7, 2 kilometres now, quicker than anybody at the bottom, 58.53. That was just a tenth slower than his first heat, 900ths of a second. That's a really good run. That's a big, big run from Grizz.
He can be stoked with that, for sure. Like, an improvement from his first run on the start, and snow does not affect him as much.
Yeah.
A little bit of a leg kick here as he heads into corner 12. Keeps his shoulders on the ice. You can see that elbow popped out, but he got it in, again, really nice and quick. Toes together, nice and composed. You can see him leaning off the curve there. Runners go a bit sideways, but controls it very nicely.
Yeah. Swiveling those big, long legs behind him helps steer the sled. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You steer with every part of your body, don't you? So there is Dave Kreszczeshin, the race leader. As we have 11 sleds to go here. Axel Jung's fan club can't wait. Florian of Austria, the 24-year-old from Innsbruck. 10th and 12th in the 2 World Cup races this season. He's middle of those, 11th after the first heat.
And his dad came in this week as well to help hold the camera and help coach when needed.
Nice, Christian Auer, part of the crew that runs the track in Innsbruck. We'll go there in a couple of weeks.
A little bit of a skid on that first pressure. And it's tricky. Flo's a little bit smaller than Dave, so he's not going to be able to keep pushing the speed. You see his shoulders popping up as he leans to try to get to the left-hand side into Kreisel.
108 kilometres an hour, quicker than Greszczeshin at this stage, but it was Griz's mass further on down the track that really accelerated him. Quarter of a second back, at the moment in second place, ahead of the USA's Kyle Brown.
Again, lifting those shoulders, trying to steer early in.
All right, this might still be a top 10 run by the end of the day. There's a lot of racing still to do. 58.94. It's nearly, well, over half a second slower than his first heat. But Dave Greszczeshin laid down an absolute stormer of a second heat after a good first run. So Florinauer may yet end up in the top 10. 10 down, 10 to go. More snow falling all the time.
Into 12 here, he gets a little bit loopy, and he's going to drop that left toe to not hit that right wall, but instead he gets stuck in that snowdrift the entire straightaway.
Yeah, you can see the runner mark right up by the wall, almost in the really thick stuff at the bottom. So there's Florinauer, second place, behind Dave Greszczeshin of Canada. No 2-minute break now. We're going to go straight through with our sliders to try and get this second heat successfully completed. Snow doesn't appear to be easing off, doesn't appear to be getting any heavier. 10th place after the first heat in Altenberg, race 3 of the Skeleton World Cup. Thomas Dukos of Latvia, Martin Haven and Elizabeth Meyer of Canada calling the action. See, it's that word Meyer.
Yeah, throws everyone off. Thomas here is coming back again from knee surgery. He's been struggling a ton with that. So his start isn't exactly where he'd want it to be.
So much experience on the ice. Nice, smooth lines as you come to expect from the Dukos brothers. Heels together.
Shoulders down, head down.
Flawless technique and form. And this year, as every year, just testing equipment, testing runners, different setups. The brothers split the testing between the two of them, so they'll almost never run the same setup.
Couple taps and a couple getting stuck in that snowdrift there.
Yeah, that's getting wider, isn't it? It's catching more and more of the runner. He had 2 runners in it. We've seen a lot of sliders with only 1 at the line. 1400s up on Grizz. That'll be grape juice down there, I imagine.
Yes.
Maybe a coffee, something like that.
Warm grape juice.
Yum, yum. I'm surprised that Luvine stands solo. He's not close enough to have gone there yet. So Grizz moves out of the leader's box. Thomas Dukos moves in.
He lets the pressures go a little bit more, but if they're in the proper position, then you're able to have a nice exit. A little bit of a flop, which sends him in, well, snow everywhere there, but sends him into the right wall a little bit.
Was 3800s ahead of Greszczeshin after the first heat. Only 1900s up after the second heat. 1400s rather, so he lost more than half of his advantage. Grizz has the fastest run down the track in this second heat so far. Yeah, over here, in the snow. Where else? 9 to go, and Marcus Wyatt of Great Britain, the second fastest starter, with a good shot at a top 10 finish here. And that would be a decent result for Marcus. 14th here last year. This is only his 7th World Cup. So this is the first track he's come back to as a World Cup slider. See the yellow jacket of Kilian von Schleinitz in the background. He'll be next up. We're now in a little tight group of athletes. Marcus was a 10th ahead of Thomas Dukos, 100th behind Kilian von Schleinitz, 700th behind Austin Florian of the USA. So plenty of potential to move up.
A little bit of an odd load there, kind of as he kicked his leg and into the sled.
5:02, just a fraction slower than his first, but look at the wind gusting here. You don't feel it in the track because you're down below those walls, but the snow piles up nevertheless.
Nice clean exit there. A little bit of a bump into 5, but if you control it well, it doesn't affect you.
Now he's opened up his advantage over Thomas Dukos.
A little bit skinny in the straight here. You can see the snow parting behind him.
Thomas with around 100 World Cup races more than Marcus Wyatt in terms of experience.
Stays off that wall there, a little bit into that snowdrift.
from 39 to 2100s up. This could be tight. 2200s, okay, he stopped losing time. 110.7, as good speed as the Latvian, so Marcus Wyatt will take the lead and will finish no worse than 9th place.
That's a great result for him.
Yes, it is. His World Cup best potential, I think. So the 26-year-old has the lead with 8 to go. He was only 100th off 8th. He was only 700th off 7th.
The guys behind him are really going to have to put it down to try to pass him.
Yeah. And with every athlete, there's 2 minutes more snow finding its way into the track.
You can see that snow parting behind him.
Well, look on the straight here down to Kreisel. He's the recipient of a fresh sweep. Every third athlete, the track gets swept down the straight, so he got a little less friction there. What about Kilian von Schleinitz, or Kilian Freiherr von Schleinitz? Kilian Baron von Schleinitz, as we now have to call him. The 24-year-old Baron von Schleinitz.
That's a lot of names.
Yeah, that's a lot. That probably only scratches the surface. The family has a lot of history, and with history always go names. 5:11 to get away. That is 900 slower than Marcus Wyatt, our current leader, so he's already behind.
Kilian earned his spot during the German Championships that just happened a couple weeks ago, just before Christmas, by finishing on the podium there.
And that was held at the track here in Altenberg. A little bit of training for them. 800s behind at the start, 600s behind now. He knows the track better than Marcus Wyatt.
You can see him looking towards that, keeping away so he's not getting too towards the left before Kreisel.
It's actually only his 10th World Cup race because he's been absent since February 2016 from the World Cup squad.
Really nice exit out of Kreisel and is accelerating here at the bottom of the track.
Yeah, now this is him shooting not just for the top 6, but maybe to get up to 4th or 5th position. Good run from Kilian von Schleinitz and across the line. That's a really good run, 58.34. That's the fastest of the second heat by a big margin. So Kilian von Schleinitz was 8th after the first heat. That might get him into the top half dozen. And who knows? Doesn't take much to make a mistake, and in these conditions give away a lot of time, Elizabeth.
Definitely. Any little mistake. He misses his sled there, actually, as he loads onto it. You can see those hands on the left, and his fingers are bracing himself a little bit. That's kind of an interesting load. You can see the snow coming down here, and he gets a bit of a skid. You can see the snow flying behind that right runner, and he's leaning away from that wall to not get too early in.
Just trying to shift the hips and get the weight away from the wall. Tried not to drag a toe. Axel Jung's fan club in their orange T-shirts here en masse. 7 sleds to go in Altenberg, Germany, and a sensational second World Cup run in the first heat from Austin Florian of the USA. The youngster in only his 2nd ever World Cup start in 7th place. First out of the tracks in the first run. He had a perfect track to work with, but boy, this is such a tough track to drive. Elizabeth Meyer, he did a great job.
He had an awesome first run, and definitely can be pleased with that. And to have a good run here on your first World Cup race ever is something you can be very pleased with.
Top 5 start, and again, a very quick start in the second heat. Little bit more snow on the straight. You see, it just blows the sled, blows the snow away. 700s back from Kilian von Schleinitz, so he may lose a spot, but unless it goes really wrong for him here, this is a guaranteed top 10 finish.
A bit of flopping and tapping, but he's relaxed into them, so it's not costing him as much as it could.
3rd place on the splits. If he's in 4th or better at the line, he is 5th fastest, but in 3rd place at the line. That guarantees him a top 10 finish on his 2nd ever World Cup race. We talked about this between the break, between the runs. It might be a while before he betters that. That was the setup of that was the first run that was just great.
Definitely. You can see him coming out of 9 here a little bit too early, and it kind of skids the sled. He's wanting to get off that corner a bit too early, but then pops it back the runners going straight. Coming off of Kreisel, he has a bit of a flop and a tiny tap, and that's what cost him a little bit at the bottom of the track and where Kilian really went past him.
24-year-old Austin Florian from Southington, Connecticut, the North America's Cup champion last year, guaranteed a top 10 finish here in Altenberg, Germany. The track too tough to tame, one of the hardest drivers' tracks in the business. No wonder he's looking happy with that. It's a snow race in Altenberg, but that hasn't stopped the fans coming out in their numbers from Dresden. Over 100 fans, 120 odd, coming here to support one man alone. And this is him, Axel Jung, Dresden local. This is his home track. Axel, little disappointed with his first heat, only in 6th place. He did this in Winterberg just before Christmas and rallied with a superb second heat, and that's what he needs now more than anything.
.100th faster than his first start. Nice and relaxed and composed on his sled. Chin nice and low.
He finished in bronze medal position here 2 years ago. And it's not beyond the bounds of possibility he could do that again.
Really nice controlled exit out of 4. Nice entry into these labyrinth corners, ideally missing the snowdrifts, which he is doing a great job.
And take a look at the straight again. He's the 3rd athlete down, so it's freshly swept. Little less friction means a little more speed. Great exit from Axel Jung. Here we go, 1200s up. He's only just keeping his advantage over von Schleinitz. Last year, he was the 3rd of the 3 German sliders. 1400s, what's he got in terms of speed? 1:11.4, pretty decent. Dave Christensen of Canada, still the fastest man at the bottom, but a 58.36 slide puts him into the lead, guaranteed top 6 finish.
He had a much better exit of Kreisel this run, so he should be pleased with that. I mean, snow is a pain to deal with when you're sliding, so maybe a snowdrift to hit here and there, it takes a couple hundredths, and it all adds up.
8th place last year, no worse than 6th this year.
Much nicer Kreisel. He lets it go, which helps him accelerate, but he doesn't let it flop him. Chin nice and low, almost touching the ice. Into a ton of snow there.
His 35th World Cup race. And his record here, 4th, 4th, 3rd, and 8th. Axel Jung leads. It's a little chilly out for that, sir.
They know it's cold.
Well, I guess he's got that glue-vine insulation.
Yeah.
Well, there's Axel, much bigger smile for him. We'll have a German leader after this sled. We may well have a German 1, 2, 3. Axel Jung leads. Christopher Grotehair next up, last to start in the first heat. 5:13 getaway, quicker than his first. And he drove superbly in really similar conditions in Heat 1, Elizabeth.
Yeah, he did not have the best conditions on that first run because he took the first few races off due to an injury, so that puts him lower in the starting order.
200s ahead of his teammate, was 500s when he lay down. He had 1400s in hand over Axel Jung from the first heat, but Grotehair's speed comes at the bottom, below the Kreisel. If he's in front now, he should be able to build on that momentum. 108 kilometres an hour, fastest of all, quicker than Grizz even. Now we're going to see him stretch his legs, or are we? 111, quicker than his teammate, but he will be only a fraction in front, if at all. Will it be a heat at the line? No, by 100th. 58.49. Well, Dirk Matchens doesn't look overjoyed with that. But then staring into the face of a blizzard at the track at the top there, it's hard to look overjoyed at anything.
Definitely, and he was having to take a little bit less good lines just because of where the snowdrifts are. He's getting stuck in them, and that really slows you down.
Well, he holds his position. He leads a German 1, 2, 3 with 4 to go.
You can see the puff of snow coming out as he comes out of that curve.
It's like racing in a snow globe.
Yes. Stop shaking us. Keeps it nice on that left-hand side. You can see the sled wiggling just a little bit and leaning away so that he doesn't go too early into Kreisel.
And you just see there in the slow-mo rolling the hips, just shifting the weight around on the sled to steer it, just little nudges to get it in the right position. Axel Jung second, Kilian von Schleinitz third, Christopher Grotehair leads. 4 to go. Martin Stucos of Latvia in his 112th World Cup race in men's skeleton, on the brink of yet another podium.
What we expect from Martins is head low, his feet together. He looks like he's so relaxed on his sled, more than any of the athletes here.
5:05 start, quicker than most of the field, but slower than his first. He was 300ths out of a medal position in the first heat.
You can see the snow just blowing into the track. A little bit of a skid there in the straightaway. You see the snow going behind him.
Martins with 50 career wins in World Cup racing, and that doesn't count the other podiums.
Just a tap as he entered that curve, which kind of sent him for a bit of a loop.
Drops into the red, more taps. This is not going to be a podium finish. He's not going to beat Christopher Groothair to the line. Martin Stucos drops how many? 4 spots. Wow, 58.65. It all came unraveled below the Kreisel. Lisbeth Meyer, that's unusual for Martin Stucos to have driving errors.
Definitely, but I think coming out of 14, there's a lot of snow buildup on that right-hand side, and when you get into it, it can push you either way, and I think it just pushed him into that right wall. Perhaps a little bit too much movement on the sled, but that's not what we're used to seeing from Martins.
Well, he was off the podium last year for the first time here in 7 years.
There's that snow coming out of Kreisel. He gets that crazy loop going into 13, and then into 14, controls it well. And if there was no snow, this would be the line you wanted. But the snow just kind of pulls him a little bit to the right.
Well, plenty to think about for Martin Stucos. He dropped behind all 3 Germans, so we have a German 1, 2, 3 with 3 to go. Can Christopher Groothair take a medal, as he did last year, as he did the year before? Bronze last year for this man, victory the year before. He couldn't win this, could he?
Well, anything happens in racing. I never count anything out on a race day.
Especially in the snow. Okay, we have 2 Russians and a Korean left to go, an Olympic bronze medalist and 2 Olympic champions in our final 3. You want quality? We've got quality. Joint World Cup points leader Nikita Tregebov, first in Sigulda, 4th in Winterberg last time out. The girls at the top banging on the hoardings as ever, supporting their teammate. Better start than the first heat, 5:19. He stumbled a little bit loading in heat 1. That's a much tidier load.
Definitely, and his head's nice and low, shoulders on the sled, good aero position for a big guy.
And that's a valid point, particularly on a snow day. He is a big unit. Took a little rub from 4 to 5, though.
A little bit of a bump.
Okay, he had 500ths on Groothair from the first heat. He's 300ths behind now.
And that's all from that 4 to 5 transition. That little bit of a tap does slow the sled down.
Decent speed, but what's he got? He's a kilometre down on Christopher Groothair. The gap will grow. 500ths back. Snow blows in. How's he found that speed? 1:13.3, quickest of all. Racing away, he's into the medals. Nikita Tregebov for the 2nd time this season by a 1/4 of a second. That's insane speed at the bottom, and that's what being a big, heavy athlete does for you. I mean, look at the physique of this man. There's a lot of mass in that muscle.
Definitely, and like you said, he's an Olympic medalist. He knows how to compete under pressure. A little bit of a tap as he heads into 15. You see that left runner go off a lot.
Yeah. So Nikita Tregebov guaranteed to take a medal. 1st, 4th, and no worse than 3rd now is his record so far this season. 2 to go. Russians went 1-3 in the women's skeleton race this afternoon. Let's see if they can improve on that in the men's skeleton race. Stark Industries like the little touches on the Ironman helmet of our Olympic champion Sunbin Jung of Korea. Well, Jung won here last year, one of 5 victories from 7 World Cup starts, and then that small business of winning his home Olympics in February as well.
Much better load onto the sled instead of that first run where he kind of slipped 500ths faster.
5:04 getaway, scintillating stuff from the Korean.
You can see him leaning away from that snowdrift on the right-hand side.
Yeah, lean away and the sled will follow.
Really clean exit there.
Well, he's avoiding the bumps on the wall and he's avoiding a lot of the snow as well. Good looking run so far and a huge advantage, quarter of a second up on Chegibov.
Really nice exit as he enters into Kreisel, and he's just accelerating down the track.
Comfortably the fastest into the Kreisel. Now, is this going to be silver or is this going to be gold for Sun Bin Young of Korea? 107.8. Quicker than Chegibov.
Into that snowdrift again, like every athlete has done again.
Well, he's 2 kilometres an hour down, so this will come down to a much smaller margin, but at the line he is in front by a quarter second and change. A 58.08. That's 21 hundredths on this run alone, quicker than Nikita Chegibov. So he opens up his advantage to 27 hundredths.
As the snow continues to fall like crazy.
Yep.
Much better load onto the sled this time. He gets that power step on the right instead of kind of slipping away that we saw in the first run. Now, this line, again, would be great if there was no snow, but the snow kind of pushes him into that right wall. Not only does the hit slow you down, so does the snow.
Predictably, a bit of Gangnam Style. And now, predictably also, a bit of support from the Russian women's skeleton team for their #1 slider, Alexander Tretyakov, Olympic champion, world champion, fastest man in the sport at the start for so many years and almost overshoots on the top. 494 the getaway, that's an incredible speed.
400's quicker than the first run.
His first World Cup race here was in 2004. Back then, at 20, he was starting 5:01. He's going nearly a tenth quicker now at 33.
He's extended his lead just a little bit over Sun Bin. And that's from that push. That push is really going to help him down the track.
Little toe steer to get him online into the Kreisel. Takes the first wave nicely, controlling it well. Wants the exit down the straight, doesn't want to be skidding.
He's losing a little bit of time now as he hits these snowdrifts, and kind of those toe taps that we're seeing are slowing him down a bit.
He was 49 hundredths up from the first heat. He's still got almost all of that, and he's quicker than anybody at the bottom, as he was in the first heat. Victory number 2 of the season for Alexander Tretyakov. That's 2 in a row now. He won in Winterberg before Christmas. He wins in Altenberg after Christmas. His first win on this track.
He's almost a full second slower than that first run, so that shows what the snow is doing. But it was still the fastest of the heat.
Fantastic. Our World Cup leader going into the Christmas break, tied with his teammate Nikita Chegibov. They had a win and a 4th place apiece. Now he's got a second win. Chegibov with a bronze medal here. So like in the women's race, Russia go 1-3 in the women's race. It was Yelena Nikitina who claimed victory. Yulia Kanakina taking her first ever World Cup medal with bronze. And this time it's Nikita Chegibov who takes bronze and Alexander Tretyakov who takes the gold. And in between them, as at the end of the first heat, our reigning Olympic champion, Sun Bin Young of Korea. Thomas Tuchus offers his congratulations to the Russian rocket who has started this season in great form.
Even with a little bit of a slip at the start, he was able to lay down the fastest start. Really composed on his sled. His head is nice and low. A couple of toe taps here and there, but he's had the experience here that he knows how to control the sled and let it go when it needs to, which allows you to win a race here in crazy conditions.
Well, back in 2004, he started 1500s quicker than anyone in the field, finished 37th. He has learned in the intervening 15 years how to control that speed, and it shows. Alexander Tretyakov by a clear half second over Sun Bin Young, Nikita Chegibov in 3rd, then Christopher Grohe, Axel Jung and Kilian von Schleinitz rounding out the top half dozen for Germany. Dave Krejceshin just outside of the top 10, but Austin Florian of the USA in 9th place, a fantastic result in his 2nd ever World Cup race. Well, Elizabeth Meyer, what a race that was. The first heat, nice and clear. The second heat, whether that you can relate to after your race this morning.
Definitely. A snow race is not the funnest to compete in, and usually as the sleds go on, it'll get slower and slower, but Alexander Tretiakov was able to lay it down in the second heat like he did on the first and maintain that #1 run spot.
Yeah, defying gravity, and a lot of wind now, really is blowing in a lot. In the women's race earlier, it was snowing, but less wind behind it. This looks like Saturday's storm is starting to arrive a little bit earlier than was anticipated. Nevertheless, Tretiakov with 2 wins now from 3 starts, same as Elena Nikitina, his teammate in the women's competition.
Definitely. Those Russians that had an interesting season last year are coming back fighting this year. They got fire in them, and they're showing it. It's incredible.
And again, you know, it takes a lot to beat a really good starter, and both Nikitina and Tretiakov are really good starters. It's like anything else, you know, they talk about it in American football, don't they? You know, if you start a step in front of your defensive opposition, he's got to be much better than you to catch that up, and it's the same deal here. And Tretiakov, in his 99th World Cup race, claims victory for the 2nd time this season. And did I make a note of how many race wins he's had? 46 now, 47 podiums, and that is his 12th World Cup win. World Championship gold in 2013, Olympic gold in 2014, European Championship gold way back in 2007 in Koenigsegg, where we go next week for the European Championships. I wouldn't want to put money against it. And our 2008-2009 World Cup champion. And right now, looking like he might be the favourite to win this year's World Cup Crystal Globe too. Snowy Altenberg in Saxony sees Alexander Tretiakov claim sole control of the men's skeleton World Cup rankings ahead of Nikita Tregebov, his teammate. Sun Min-young of Korea, the reigning Olympic champion, in 3rd ahead of Germany's top slider Axel Jung. Well, after 3 races, the Russian rocket Alexander Tretiakov now with 2 victories and a 4th place. And he has taken sole control of the standings. We head into the rest of the European campaign in tracks that he knows well and that he has won on previously. This is his first win in Altenberg, and in some of the worst conditions we've seen here, well, since last year's race, actually. Overshot the sled on the 2nd start, but he had an even quicker getaway than his first heat, and the snow didn't seem to have enough of an effect on him for everybody else's liking. He hung on to his first heat advantage and extended it to go away and win by coming on for 0.6 of a second. Elizabeth Meyer, another superlative performance from Tretiakov.
Definitely. His start is now up to the same level as his driving.
Yeah, back where it was. So there is Alex Sun Min-young in between the 2 Russians, taking the silver medal, and Nikita Tregebov on the right-hand side taking the bronze. So 2 golds, 2 bronzes for Russians' skeleton squad here on Friday in Saxony. How will their bobsleigh teams fare? You can find out by joining us as we rejoin the action Saturday and Sunday. Women's bob and 2-man, and then the 4-man bob on Sunday. Meanwhile, from Elizabeth Meyer and me, Martin Haven, the IBSF TV crew here in Altenberg, saying thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for lots more action. Auf Wiedersehen and goodbye.